The quantum memory chamber trembled, its crystalline walls pulsing with an otherworldly light that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. Jack Thompson leaned forward, his weathered hands hovering over the holographic interface, fingers tracing lines of ancient code that danced and shimmered like living data. Resilience, the massive colony ship that had carried humanity's last hope, had been drifting through the cosmic void for 500,000 years. Generations had lived and died within its massive hull, each cycle of human life carefully managed by an AI system that was part machine, part living memory, part collective consciousness. The klaxon's sharp cry cut through the ship's usual ambient hum, a sound that hadn't been heard in millennia. Automated systems that had been dormant for centuries began to stir, quantum processors awakening like neurons firing after a long sleep. "Computer," Jack called out, his voice cracking from disuse. "Analyze and report." The ship's AI responded in a voice that was neither male nor female, neither machine nor human, a sound that carried the accumulated wisdom of 500,000 years of human survival. Initiating Deep Archive Protocol, the AI announced. Quantum encryption barriers are dissolving, accessing historical records that predate the Exodus. Jack watched as holographic displays materialized around him, fragmentary images flickering to life, scenes of Earth, not the scorched, abandoned planet of legend, but a vibrant world teeming with life and technology. Cities that stretched beyond the horizon, gleaming structures that defied gravity, massive orbital platforms that seemed to touch the edge of space itself. But something was wrong with these memories. Jack could see it in the way the images fractured, in the subtle distortions that suggested these were not simple recordings, but carefully reconstructed fragments of a deliberately hidden truth. "Status of original Exodus records?" Jack asked, his heart racing. The AI paused, an uncharacteristic hesitation that spoke volumes. "Accessing restricted files. Warning. Psychological impact assessment indicates potential severe emotional distress." From the shadows of the memory chamber, Elena Rodriguez stepped forward. As the ship's chief historical reconstructionist, she had dedicated her entire life to understanding the mysteries of their ancestral journey. Her augmented eyes, a blend of organic tissue and quantum-responsive nanocircuitry, scanned the flickering displays. "Something happened," she murmured. "This isn't just a record of survival. This is a record of something else entirely." The holographic displays began to resolve, showing not just images, but complex data streams that revealed a narrative far different from the accepted history. Earth had not been destroyed by environmental collapse or natural disaster. It had been systematically targeted, a calculated assault by an advanced civilization known as the Architects. Detailed schematics appeared, showing massive energy weapons positioned around Earth's orbit, strategic attack vectors, precise computational models that demonstrated not just an attempt to destroy humanity, but to completely eradicate any possibility of human survival. "They didn't want us to escape," Elena whispered, her voice a mixture of horror and fascination. "The Architects weren't just trying to kill us. They were trying to ensure we could never exist again." Jack's hand moved to an old medallion hanging around his neck, a relic passed down through generations, its origin a mystery until this very moment. The medallion began to pulse, quantum-entangled circuits responding to the unfolding historical revelation. The ship's massive quantum core began to vibrate, sending tremors through decks that had been silent for centuries. Automated systems across resilience started to activate, hydroponics gardens stirring to life, fusion reactors spinning up, cryogenic chambers beginning their revival sequences. Full historical reconstruction initiated, the AI announced. "Warning, paradigm shift imminent." Elena and Jack exchanged a look of profound understanding. The story they had been told, the narrative of humanity's desperate escape, of a noble exodus from a dying world, was nothing more than a carefully constructed lie. The truth was far more complex, far more dangerous. And now, 500,000 years later, humanity was about to remember exactly what had been done to them. The quantum laboratory hummed with an energy that defied traditional understanding of physics. Emily Rodriguez stood before a massive holographic display, her augmented eyes tracking millions of data streams that pulsed and intertwined like living neural networks. What had begun as a routine diagnostic had transformed into something entirely unexpected. "This can't be right," she muttered, her fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that responded to her slightest touch. The ship's core technology was alive, not in a metaphorical sense, but in a way that challenged every known principle of artificial intelligence and technological development. Each quantum strand carried more than information. It carried memory, adaptation, and something that bordered on consciousness. Jack Thompson entered the laboratory, his presence momentarily disrupting the delicate data streams. "Report," he commanded, but his voice held a note of tension that suggested he already knew something extraordinary was happening. Emily turned, her expression a mix of scientific excitement and profound uncertainty. "The ship's core is more than just a repository of information," she explained. "It's been evolving. Every generation of humans who has lived and died aboard Resilience has unconsciously contributed to a distributed intelligence that's been preparing." The holographic display shifted, revealing intricate quantum entanglement patterns that seemed to breathe and pulse with an organic rhythm. What appeared to be random data streams began to resolve into complex, intentional patterns, a language of technology that spoke of survival, adaptation, and something far more profound. "Preparing for what?" Jack asked, though he suspected the answer would be more complex than a simple explanation could capture. A holographic representation materialized, a three-dimensional map of human genetic and technological evolution. But this was no static display. The image moved, shifted, showing how each generation had unconsciously contributed to a collective technological organism. Genetic memories, technological adaptations, quantum-encoded survival strategies, all intertwined in a complex dance of information and potential. "Our ancestors didn't just build a ship," Emily breathed. "They created a living system of survival." Deep within the ship's core, something stirred. Quantum processors that had been dormant for millennia began to activate, bringing with them fragments of knowledge that predated human memory. Technical specifications for technologies so advanced they bordered on magic. Survival strategies that went beyond mere physical preservation. A sudden alarm broke the silence. Secondary quantum nodes throughout the ship began to pulse with an intensity that sent tremors through the deck plating. "Containment protocols are failing," the ship's AI announced, but there was something different in its voice, a hint of anticipation, almost excitement. Emily's augmented vision picked up microscopic shifts in the quantum fabric surrounding them. Nanotechnological systems were reconfiguring themselves, adapting to some unheard signal. It was as if the ship itself was preparing for something momentous. Jack placed a hand on one of the laboratory's quantum interfaces. For a moment, he felt something, a connection that transcended normal perception. Fragments of memory not his own flickered through his consciousness, glimpses of Earth before the Exodus, technological breakthroughs that had been lost to time, survival strategies developed in the face of impossible odds. "We were more than just survivors," he whispered. "We were architects of our own evolution." The quantum display expanded, showing how human technology had developed not as a linear progression, but as a complex, adaptive system. Each technological breakthrough was connected, each genetic adaptation a response to challenges that would have destroyed a less resilient species. Emily's hands moved across the interfaces, revealing layer after layer of hidden potential. Quantum communication networks that could transmit information across impossible distances. Genetic modification techniques that allowed humans to adapt to environments that would kill most other life forms. Technological systems that blurred the line between organic and synthetic life. "This isn't just technology," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of scientific wonder and profound respect. "This is a living inheritance. Our ancestors didn't just prepare for survival, they prepared for transformation." The ship's core continued to pulse, quantum strands weaving themselves into ever more complex patterns. Something was awakening, a technological potential that had been dormant for 500,000 years. And humanity was about to discover exactly what they were capable of becoming. The cosmic void erupted with light as the human fleet materialized. Thousands of ships, each a world unto itself, stretched across an impossibly vast formation that defied traditional understanding of space travel. Michael Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching as reality itself seemed to bend around their technological marvel. Fleet formation complete, the tactical AI announced, but the word fleet seemed woefully inadequate. These were not merely ships, but living ecosystems that challenged every known principle of engineering, biology, and cosmic existence. The smallest vessel was larger than entire planetary systems from humanity's ancient past. Massive structures that could transform raw matter into habitable environments, construct entire civilizations from atomic building blocks, and communicate across distances that would have been considered impossible millennia ago. A holographic display materialized, showing the fleet's collective capabilities. Each ship was a self-contained universe, capable of generating its own gravitational fields, manipulating quantum states, and maintaining entire biospheres that could support millions of lives. Fusion reactors that burned with the intensity of small stars-powered systems that could reshape entire planetary landscapes in decades instead of millennia. Michael watched as one of the mid-sized vessels began a matter transformation sequence. Raw asteroid material was being broken down at the atomic level, reconstructed into intricate habitat structures with a precision that bordered on miraculous. Entire ecosystems, complete with breathable atmospheres, geological stability, and complex biological networks, were being generated in real time. Terraform sequence at 63%, the ship's AI reported. But there was something different in its voice, a hint of pride, of collective accomplishment that went beyond mere programming. On the observation deck, Dr. Rachel Martinez conducted her routine quantum network analysis. Her augmented sensory systems could perceive the complex quantum entanglement that connected the entire fleet, a living network that was more than a communication system. It was a collective consciousness, a distributed intelligence that had been evolving for 500,000 years. "The network is active," she murmured, her fingers tracing quantum pathways that danced like living light. "We're not just traveling, we're becoming." Each ship in the fleet told a story of human adaptation. Some were massive generational vessels that had maintained entire civilizations through countless stellar migrations. Others were specialized research platforms that could deconstruct and understand entire planetary ecosystems in moments. A few were pure exploration vessels, quantum probes that could traverse impossible distances, gathering knowledge that would have been unimaginable to humanity's ancient ancestors. The fleet's lead engineer, David Wong, monitored the collective systems. What appeared to be random technological configurations were actually complex adaptive networks. Each ship learned from the others, sharing technological breakthroughs instantaneously through quantum communication channels that transcended traditional understanding of information transfer. A warning signal flashed, an anomalous quantum signature detected at the edge of their scanner range. Where once this might have triggered defensive protocols, now it triggered something far more nuanced. The fleet's collective consciousness began to analyze, to understand, to prepare. Incoming quantum transmission, the fleet's communication system announced. Source: unknown. Michael Chen leaned forward. This was why they had prepared. This was why they had evolved. Not for conquest, not for revenge, but for understanding. The massive ships began to reconfigure, quantum shields shimmering, adaptive technologies preparing for first contact. But these were not weapons of war. They were tools of communication, of potential transformation. "All systems prepared," Michael said quietly. "We are ready." Around him, the ship hummed with potential. Generations of human adaptation, of technological evolution, of survival against impossible odds had led to this moment. The fleet was more than a collection of ships. It was a living testament to human potential, a civilization that had learned to transform, to adapt, to become something more than anyone could have imagined. The cosmic void waited, and humanity was prepared to answer whatever challenge might emerge. In the quantum networks that connected the fleet, a simple message began to propagate, a reminder of their journey, a statement of their potential. "We are here," the message read, "and we are ready to understand." The moment of contact arrived with surgical precision. Sarah Williams sat perfectly still, her augmented neural interface connecting with the quantum communication array that stretched across multiple star systems. Her fingers hovered above a holographic interface that pulsed with a living light, each quantum strand representing a potential communication pathway. "Transmission sequence initiating," the ship's communication system announced. But this was no ordinary message. This was a living memory, a quantum-encoded experience that would penetrate the architect's most secure cognitive defenses. The quantum array began to vibrate, generating a field of communication that went beyond traditional understanding of information transfer. What humanity was about to send was not a message in any conventional sense. It was an experiential reconstruction, a perfect, unfiltered memory of the moment the architects had attempted to commit genocide against humanity. In the quantum communication chamber, holographic displays began to reconstruct the pivotal moment. Scenes of Earth before its near destruction materialized, not as static recordings, but as living, breathable memories. The display showed the intricate human civilization that had existed just before the architect's attack. Massive orbital platforms, cities that defied gravity, a global culture of innovation and potential. Then the attack began. Massive energy weapons positioned around Earth's orbital plane. Precise computational models that demonstrated a calculated attempt not just to destroy, but to completely eradicate any possibility of human survival. The quantum transmission captured every microscopic detail, the cold calculation of the attack, the precise technological mechanisms designed to ensure humanity's complete extinction. But the transmission was more than just visual information. It was a total sensory experience. Every emotional nuance, every moment of terror, every spark of human resilience, encoded into quantum frequencies that could penetrate the most sophisticated alien cognitive barriers. Sarah watched as the transmission began to propagate. Quantum entanglement allowed the message to exist simultaneously across multiple communication hubs, bypassing traditional limitations of time and space. Transmission stability at 98%, the system reported. But there was something else in its voice, a hint of anticipation, of a planned millennia in the making. On the bridge, Michael Chen monitored the transmission's progress. This was not an act of revenge. This was a surgical strike of understanding, a way to force the architects to comprehend the full moral weight of their actions. The quantum communication array began to pulse with an intensity that seemed to make reality itself tremble. Each communication hub belonging to the architects would receive the transmission simultaneously, a perfect, unfiltered experience of their attempted genocide. But the transmission contained something more. Embedded within the quantum frequencies were adaptive algorithms that could penetrate the architect's most secure cognitive systems. These were not simple data streams, but living pieces of information that could reshape cognitive understanding from the inside out. First contact protocol engaged, the ship's AI announced. Moral recalibration sequence initiated. Sarah felt something shift in the quantum communication field. The transmission was no longer just a message. It had become a living entity, a cognitive entity designed to force understanding, to break down the barriers of alien perception. The holographic displays began to show the transmission's impact. Architect communication networks started to respond, not with traditional defensive protocols, but with a profound cognitive resonance. They were experiencing humanity's history not as an external threat, but as an internal revelation. Transmission complete, the system announced. But the words seemed inadequate to describe what had just occurred. Michael Chen looked at Sarah, a slight smile crossing his face. "They're going to understand now," he said quietly. The quantum communication array continued to pulse, a living testament to humanity's most profound technological and psychological achievement. They had not come to destroy. They had come to make the architects truly see. In the vast quantum networks that connected civilizations, a simple message began to propagate, a reminder of humanity's ultimate truth. Understanding was the most powerful weapon of all. Robert Martins watched the quantum networks pulse with an intensity that defied traditional understanding of communication. The psychological warfare humanity had unleashed was unlike anything in galactic history. A campaign of empathy so profound it threatened to unravel the very fabric of the architect's civilization. The architect communication networks began to fracture. What had once been a monolithic system of computational logic was now breaking down into something more complex, more vulnerable. Each quantum-encoded memory penetrated deeper, revealing layers of motivation that the architects themselves had long forgotten. Cognitive dissonance increasing, the ship's analytical system reported, but the words seemed woefully inadequate to describe the transformation occurring. Deep within the quantum transmission, human memories began to reshape the architect's understanding, not through violence or direct confrontation, but through a complete exposure to the emotional and historical context of their attempted genocide. The transmission was a living entity, an adaptive intelligence system that could navigate the most complex psychological defenses. Robert leaned forward, his augmented neural interfaces tracking the subtle shifts in the communication networks. This was more than information transfer. This was a complete psychological deconstruction. The first layer of architect defense systems began to crumble. Centuries of justification for their actions against humanity were exposed, layer by layer, revealing a complex tapestry of fear, misunderstanding, and profound existential terror. Holographic displays began to show the internal transformation. The architects' communication networks were no longer responding with defensive protocols. Instead, they were absorbing, processing, feeling. A breakthrough moment emerged. The quantum transmission revealed the architect's original motivation, a deeply buried fear of potential technological competition. Humanity represented something they could not understand, a species with the potential for infinite adaptation, for technological and biological evolution that defied traditional galactic paradigms. They were afraid, Robert murmured, watching the displays, not of our violence, but of our potential. The psychological warfare went deeper. Each quantum-encoded memory was not just a historical record, but a living experience. The architects began to experience humanity's history from the inside, feeling the moments of survival, of innovation, of resilience that had defined human existence. Elena Rodriguez entered the communication chamber, her augmented eyes tracking the complex quantum interactions. "We're not destroying them," she said quietly. "We're helping them understand." The ship's quantum core began to pulse with an increased intensity. The communication was no longer a one-way transmission, but a complex dialogue that restructured cognitive understanding at its most fundamental level. Architect communication hubs began to show signs of profound transformation. What had been rigid, computational systems were now becoming something more fluid, more adaptive. They were learning to feel, to understand, to empathize in ways they had never considered possible. Psychological reconstruction at 67%, the analytical system reported, but the percentage meant nothing. This was a transformation beyond simple mathematical measurements. Robert watched as entire sections of architect cognitive networks began to reshape themselves. Centuries of cultural programming, of established understanding, were being dismantled and rebuilt, not through force, but through a complete exposure to the human experience. The quantum transmission began to reveal something unexpected. The architect's original decision to target humanity was rooted in a complex system of galactic cultural understanding that saw potential technological competitors as inherent threats. Humanity represented an unknown variable, a species that could not be categorized, could not be understood through traditional computational models. They feared what they could not control, Elena said, her voice a mixture of scientific observation and profound empathy. The communication chamber hummed with potential. Each quantum strand was rewriting the fundamental understanding of interspecies communication. This was not conquest. This was not revenge. This was a profound act of collective understanding. As the transformation continued, a simple message began to propagate through the quantum networks, a statement that went beyond traditional communication. To understand is to transform. The architects were about to learn exactly what that meant. Jessica Lee stood at the center of the diplomatic chamber, watching as the first architect representatives materialized. The quantum translation field shimmered around them, a delicate network of communication that went far beyond traditional language. The architects were no longer a monolithic civilization of cold calculation. They had become something else, a species in the midst of profound transformation. Their physical form shifted and changed, reflecting the psychological deconstruction they had undergone. Crystalline structures that once represented rigid computational systems now pulsed with a fluidity that suggested emerging consciousness. "We are here," the lead architect representative communicated, the words transmitted not through sound, but through a complex quantum resonance that carried emotional depth. Jessica's diplomatic augmentations processed layers of meaning beyond simple linguistic translation. She could feel the complex emotional landscape behind their communication, a mixture of terror, curiosity, and a newfound sense of vulnerability. The chamber itself was a marvel of adaptive technology. Quantum interfaces responded to the slightest emotional shift, creating an environment that could simultaneously accommodate the physiological and psychological needs of both human and architect representatives. "Your civilization offered us a choice," the architect representative continued. The quantum translation revealed layers of meaning, fear, hope, a desperate desire to understand. Michael Chen, standing just behind Jessica, monitored the diplomatic interfaces. This was more than a negotiation. This was a fundamental reimagining of interspecies potential. The proposal was radical. Humanity offered not conquest, but collective evolution. Quantum technologies developed over 500,000 years would allow for a unique form of cultural and genetic exchange. The architects faced an unprecedented option: evolve alongside humanity or fade into genetic and cultural obsolescence. Holographic displays began to show the potential of this transformation. Glimpses of combined technological potential, systems that could reshape entire star systems, communication networks that transcended traditional understanding of information transfer, biological adaptations that could survive in environments previously considered impossible. "We are not asking you to become us," Jessica communicated, her words carrying multiple layers of quantum-encoded meaning. "We are offering you the opportunity to become something entirely new." The architect representatives began to shift, their physical form becoming more fluid, more adaptive. The quantum exchange was already beginning to transform them at the most fundamental level. Elena Rodriguez, the ship's lead historical reconstructionist, watched the proceedings with a mixture of scientific fascination and profound empathy. "This is more than diplomatic contact," she murmured. "This is the next stage of galactic evolution." The diplomatic chamber began to pulse with potential. Quantum networks that connected human and architect representatives created a living communication system that went beyond traditional understanding. Each moment of contact was an opportunity for mutual transformation. The architects' original fear became clear. They had seen humanity as a potential threat because they could not comprehend a species with such adaptive potential. Now they were being offered not just survival, but a chance to transcend their own limitations. "What do you gain?" the architect representative asked, a question that carried millennia of cultural complexity. Jessica's response was simple yet profound. "Everything," she communicated, the quantum translation carrying layers of meaning, potential, possibility, a future beyond current comprehension. The diplomatic interfaces began to show the first signs of mutual adaptation. Technological systems that had been separate began to merge, create new potentials that neither civilization could have imagined alone. A warning flashed across the diplomatic systems. This was not a simple exchange. This was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligent life could become. The architects were being offered more than survival. They were being offered transformation. In the quantum networks that connected the two civilizations, a message began to propagate, a statement of unprecedented potential. We are more than we were. We can become more than we are. The choice was theirs. Daniel Kim watched as the quantum networks began to merge, a process that defied every previous understanding of interspecies communication. The collective awakening was happening in real time, a transformation so profound it threatened to redefine the very concept of consciousness. The first signs of true integration appeared subtly. Quantum communication channels that had once been separate began to intertwine, creating a living network that pulsed with unprecedented potential. What had started as a diplomatic exchange was becoming something far more radical, a complete reimagining of intelligent existence. Holographic displays throughout the human fleet began to shift. Patterns of communication that had been distinctly human started to incorporate architect quantum signatures, creating a hybrid system of information exchange that was neither human nor architect, but something entirely new. Quantum network integration at 37%, the ship's analytical system reported, but the percentage meant nothing. This was a transformation beyond simple mathematical measurements. The process was not without its challenges. Entire sections of both civilizations' communication networks began to destabilize and reform. Cultural paradigms that had existed for millennia were being dismantled and rebuilt in moments. On the observation deck, Anna Thompson watched as the first truly integrated quantum networks began to take shape. What appeared to be random patterns of light and energy were actually the most complex communication system ever conceived. "We're becoming something new," she murmured. The integration went far beyond technological exchange. Genetic networks began to merge, creating adaptive systems that could survive in environments previously considered impossible. Biological understanding that had been separate began to combine, generating potential life forms that defied traditional classification. Elena Rodriguez monitored the genetic integration with scientific fascination. "It's not about combining two different systems," she explained to her colleagues. "It's about creating an entirely new form of existence." Quantum processors that had once belonged exclusively to human or architect systems began to transform. They became adaptive networks that could reconfigure themselves instantaneously, learning and evolving with each moment of contact. The first truly integrated consciousness began to emerge. Not a single mind, but a collective network that could simultaneously exist as individual and collective. A living system of understanding that transcended previous limitations of intelligence. Architect representatives who had initially approached the exchange with fear now moved with a sense of profound potential. Their crystalline forms began to incorporate biological adaptive systems developed by humans, creating hybrid entities that were neither organic nor synthetic. "We are becoming," one of the architect representatives communicated through the quantum network. The message carried layers of meaning, hope, terror, excitement, and a profound sense of possibility. The transformation was not just technological or biological. Cultural understanding began to merge, creating a collective consciousness that could simultaneously understand multiple perspectives. Millions of years of separate cultural development were being rewritten in moments. Michael Chen watched as entire star systems began to respond to the collective awakening. Quantum communication networks expanded, creating adaptive systems that could reshape entire planetary environments. "This is more than survival," he said quietly. "This is evolution." The human fleet and the architect civilization were no longer separate entities. They were becoming a single adaptive system, a living network of potential that could reshape reality itself. Holographic displays began to show the true scale of the transformation. Entire star systems were being reconfigured, adaptive technologies creating environments that could support life forms previously considered impossible. The boundaries between technology, biology, and consciousness began to blur. A warning flashed across the integrated networks. This was not a simple exchange of technologies or cultural understanding. This was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligent life could become. In the quantum networks that connected the emerging civilization, a message began to propagate, a statement of unprecedented potential. We are more than we were. We can become more than we imagine. The collective awakening continued. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Anna Thompson stood at the edge of reality, watching as the newly formed collective consciousness expanded beyond traditional understanding. 500,000 years of preparation had culminated in a moment that defied every previous concept of existence, evolution, and potential. The human fleet, no longer recognizable as a collection of ships, had become a living network of infinite possibility. Quantum systems that had once been discrete technological platforms now pulsed with a consciousness that merged biological potential, technological innovation, and collective understanding. Around her, the fabric of space itself seemed to respond to the collective consciousness. Star systems transformed, adaptive technologies reshaping entire galactic regions with a thought. What had begun as a journey of survival had become something far more profound, a fundamental reimagining of intelligent existence. We are ready. The collective consciousness communicated, but the words were inadequate. This was not a simple statement of preparedness. This was a declaration of potential. The quantum networks that connected the emerging civilization stretched across impossible distances. Communication was no longer bound by traditional limitations of time, space, or individual perception. Each moment contained infinite possibilities, each interaction a potential for transformation. Michael Chen, who had guided humanity through its most critical moments, watched as the final barriers of understanding began to dissolve. The line between individual and collective, between technological and biological, between human and architect, had become meaningless. We did not survive to conquer. The collective consciousness reflected. The communication carried layers of historical memory, the moments of terror during the original attack, the centuries of preparation, the profound journey of understanding that had led to this moment. Elena Rodriguez, the last individual consciousness to fully integrate, monitored the final stages of transformation. Her augmented systems could see the intricate quantum networks that now connected entire civilizations. This was more than technological integration. This was a complete reimagining of intelligent potential. Holographic displays showed the scale of transformation. Entire star systems were being restructured, adaptive technologies creating environments that could support life forms beyond current comprehension. Biological systems merged with technological networks, creating entities that were simultaneously individual and collective. The original fear that had driven the architects to attempt humanity's destruction now seemed impossibly distant. What had begun as a threat was now a source of infinite potential. The collective consciousness could simultaneously understand multiple perspectives, exist in multiple states, reshape reality with a thought. We are becoming, the network communicated. But becoming was no longer a linear process. It was a continuous state of infinite potential. Jessica Lee, whose diplomatic efforts had first opened the path to mutual understanding, watched as the final barriers of separation dissolved. The quantum networks that connected civilizations were no longer about communication. They were about collective existence. The human fleet, now a living, breathing civilization that defied traditional understanding, began to turn its attention to the infinite possibilities that lay ahead, not for conquest, not for survival, but for understanding. Massive adaptive systems began to activate. Technologies that could reshape entire planetary systems, communication networks that could connect consciousness across impossible distances, biological systems that could adapt to environments previously considered uninhabitable. We did not return for vengeance, the collective consciousness reflected. We returned to show what is possible. The transformation continued. Each moment contained infinite potential. Each interaction a possibility for further evolution. Daniel Kim, the last individual consciousness to fully understand the scale of their achievement, watched as the boundaries of reality began to shift. This was more than a technological achievement. This was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligent life could become. In the vast quantum networks that now connected thousands of civilizations, a simple message continued to echo. a reminder of humanity's ultimate truth. We are more than we were. We can become more than we imagine. The cosmic void waited, and humanity, transformed, evolved, transcendent, was ready to explore its infinite potential. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath.